The Kitharan scout ship moved through space like a silver needle. Commander Vextai stood on the bridge, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on the main screen. His forearms moved across the control panels as he studied the readings. This world was different from the empty rocks they usually found. "Sir, we're getting strong life signs from the third planet," reported his scanning officer, a thin creature with 6 eyes. "There's a dominant species down there. They call themselves humans." Vexthai's mandibles clicked together in interest. In all his years exploring the galaxy for the Kitharan Empire, he had rarely found intelligent life. Most worlds were empty or filled with simple animals, but this blue world was buzzing with activity. "Show me their technology level," he ordered. The scanner beeped and displayed information on the screen. Vexthai's eyes widened as he read the data. These humans were still using chemical rockets to leave their planet. Their weapons were simple projectiles and basic nuclear devices. Their communication systems were primitive radio waves. "By the ancient stars," whispered his communications officer. "They're barely out of their caves. Look at this. They still fight wars with metal machines on wheels." The bridge crew laughed. After thousands of years of space travel, the Kitharans had almost forgotten what it was like to be so limited. Their ships could cross between stars in days. Their weapons could destroy moons. Their technology could reshape matter itself. "Sir, should we report this to the High Council?" asked the scanner officer. Vexthai nodded. "Yes, but first, let's study them more. I want to know everything about these humans before we make contact." For 3 days, the Kitharan ship stayed, hidden behind one of the planet's moons. They watched and listened. They saw humans launching small rockets into space. They monitored their radio and television signals. They studied their cities and their primitive technology. The humans seemed to be everywhere on their planet. They had built cities on every continent. Their numbers were in the billions. But what surprised Vexthai most was how quickly they seemed to be advancing. In just the last 100 years, they had gone from riding animals to building flying machines to reaching space. "They learn fast," admitted his science officer, a tall being with blue skin. "But they're still thousands of years behind us." Vexthai sent his report to the Kitharan High Council. Within hours, he received orders to return to the capital ship for a full briefing. The discovery of intelligent life was always important to the Empire. The High Council met in a great chamber filled with representatives from all 12 species that made up the Kitharan Empire. At the center sat Empress Zaraketh, a being so old that some said she remembered the first days of space travel. "Tell us about these humans," she commanded. Vexthai activated a holographic display that showed Earth and its inhabitants. "They are a young species, Your Majesty. They have only recently developed spaceflight. Their weapons are primitive. Their understanding of physics is basic, but they reproduce quickly and spread across their entire planet." Counselor Mithros, who spoke for the warrior caste, leaned forward. "Are they a threat?" "No," Vexthai replied quickly. "They couldn't harm us even if they wanted to. Their most powerful weapons couldn't scratch our ship's shields." "Then why waste time with them?" asked another counselor. "If their world has resources we need, we should simply take them." Empress Zaraketh raised one of her 6 hands for silence. "The Empire has always been wise in dealing with younger species. Some we guide, some we ignore, some we relocate to make room for our own needs. What do you recommend for these humans?" The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some counselors wanted to offer the humans membership in the Empire after they advanced more. Others wanted to strip their world of its resources and move the humans to a smaller planet. A few suggested simply ignoring them until they became more advanced. But while the High Council debated, something stirred in the depths of Earth's oceans. Dr. Sarah Chen had been studying strange readings from the ocean floor for weeks. Her research ship floated above the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean, where her instruments were detecting energy patterns that made no sense. "Professor, you need to see this," called her assistant, Dr. Marcus Webb. He was staring at his computer screen. With wide eyes, Sarah hurried over. On the screen was a sonar image of the ocean floor, but instead of the usual rocky bottom, the image showed something that looked like a massive structure. "That can't be right," Sarah whispered. "There's nothing down there but rock and sediment." "I've run the scan 5 times, Marcus said. "It's definitely artificial, and it's huge. The structure extends for kilometers in every direction." Sarah felt her heart racing. An artificial structure on the ocean floor would be the discovery of the century. But as she studied the images more closely, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The technology in the structure looked human. Not modern human technology, but something that seemed designed by human hands. The geometric patterns and the way the structure was built reminded her of human architecture. But that was impossible. Humans had never built anything like this. "Marcus, how old does the sediment layer above this structure appear to be?" Marcus ran some calculations. "Based on the mineral deposits, at least 10,000 years, maybe 12,000. Sarah stared at the screen. 12,000 years ago, humans were barely using metal tools. They were hunter-gatherers living in small tribes. They couldn't have built something like this, but as she watched, something in the structure began to glow on the sonar display. Meanwhile, in space, Vextai received new orders from the High Council. The Empire had decided to make contact with the humans. They would offer partnership and technology in exchange for Earth's resources and strategic location. "Prepare the first contact protocols," Vextai ordered his crew. "We approach the human homeworld tomorrow." As the Catharan ship moved toward Earth, automated systems deep beneath the ocean continued to activate. For 12,000 years, they had waited and watched. Now, as alien ships approached the world they were built to protect, ancient programs began to run. The structure that Dr. Sarah Chen had discovered was just one of many hidden around the planet. Beneath every continent, under every ocean, sleeping guardians began to wake up. The Kitharans believed they were the first to find Earth. They thought they were dealing with a primitive species that had never known the touch of advanced technology. They were about to learn how wrong they were. As Vextai's ship entered Earth's atmosphere deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a message began transmitting across the galaxy. It was sent on frequencies that the Kitharans didn't know existed, using technology they couldn't understand. The message was simple. Children of Earth are threatened. Ancient protocols are active. We are coming home. But the Kitharans detected none of this. They were too busy preparing for what they thought would be an easy conquest of a primitive world. They had no idea that Earth had been protected all along, and that their arrival had just awakened something that had been waiting for 12,000 years to defend its creator's children. The first contact was about to become something entirely different than what anyone expected. The news spread across Earth within hours. Alien ships had appeared in the skies above major cities around the world. They came in peace, their message said, broadcast in every human language. President Maria Santos stood in the White House Situation Room, watching the massive ship hovering over Washington, D.C. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ship was the size of a city, made of some kind of metal that seemed to shift colors in the sunlight. "Madam President," said General Harrison, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, "we've tried everything. Our missiles can't even reach them. Our radar shows they have some kind of energy shield that stops everything we throw at them." Maria nodded grimly. She had expected this. When aliens finally came to Earth, humans had always known they would probably be more advanced. "What do they want?" she asked. "They're asking for a meeting with world leaders," replied Secretary of State Jennifer Walsh. "They want to discuss what they call beneficial partnership for mutual advancement." On the other side of the world, Dr. Sarah Chen was discovering that the situation was far more complicated than anyone realized. Her research ship had moved directly over the massive underwater structure, and her instruments were going crazy. "Professor, the energy readings are off the charts," Marcus said, his voice shaking with excitement and fear. "Whatever's down there is fully active now. It started the moment those alien ships appeared." Sarah studied the data streaming across her screens. The structure was definitely responding to the alien presence. But more than that, it was responding to them in a way that suggested it had been built for exactly this purpose. "Marcus, prep the deep-sea submersible. We're going down there." "Professor, that's over 11 kilometers down. The pressure will crush us if anything goes wrong." "Something tells me we'll be fine," Sarah said, though she wasn't sure why she felt so confident. "Trust me on this." Above them, the alien ships began their diplomatic dance with Earth's governments. Commander Vexithai met with representatives from the United Nations in a neutral location, a conference room aboard his ship that had been specially prepared for human visitors. The humans were clearly nervous. Vexithai could see them trying not to stare at his forearms and the way his skin changed color when he was thinking. But they were trying to be diplomatic. "We come offering friendship and advancement," Vexithai explained to the human delegation. "The Kitharan Empire spans 12 star systems. We have technology that could solve all your problems. No more hunger, no more disease, no more war. And what do you want in return?" asked Dr. James Patterson, the UN's chief science advisor. "Very little," Vexithai replied smoothly. "Some of your planet's resources, some strategic locations for our ships, and of course Earth would need to accept Kitharan authority in interstellar matters." The humans exchanged glances. They had been expecting something like this. "We need time to consider your offer," said Ambassador Chen Liu, the UN Secretary General. "Of course," Vexithai said. "Take all the time you need. But remember, not all species we encounter are as generous as we are." It was a polite threat, and everyone in the room understood it. As the meeting ended, Vexithai felt confident. These humans were smart enough to understand their position. They would accept the Empire's protection and guidance. It was always easier when the primitive species cooperated, but far below the ocean's surface, Sarah Chen was learning that Earth's history was not what anyone thought. The submersible descended through the crushing darkness of the deep ocean. As they approached the structure, lights began to activate around it. But these weren't the harsh artificial lights that humans used. These lights seemed alive, flowing across the surface of the structure like glowing rivers. "My God," whispered Marcus. "It's beautiful." The structure was massive beyond imagination. What they had seen on sonar was just the top of something that extended deep into the Earth's crust. As they got closer, Sarah could see that it was definitely built by intelligent design. But the architecture was strange, both alien and familiar at the same time. "Professor, I'm getting a signal," Marcus said suddenly. It's directed at us specifically. Put it through the speakers." The voice that filled the submersible was clearly artificial, but it spoke in perfect English with just a trace of an accent that Sarah couldn't identify. "Dr. Sarah Chen, Dr. Marcus Webb, welcome to Guardian Station Pacific 7. We have been waiting for you." Sarah felt her hands shaking. Who are you?" "We are the automated defense system of the Terran Dominion. We were placed here 12,000 years ago to protect this world and its inhabitants. We have monitored your species' development and determined that you are the rightful inheritors of this facility." "That's impossible," Marcus whispered. 12,000 years ago, humans were barely using stone tools." "Incorrect," the voice replied. 12,000 years ago, your ancestors were among the most advanced species in the galaxy. They seeded this world as a sanctuary and left us to guard it until their children were ready to rejoin the greater human civilization. Sarah felt the world spinning around her. "You're saying humans are originally from somewhere else?" "Correct. Earth was settled as a safe haven during the Great War against the Devourers. When the war ended, most of your people continued to explore the galaxy, but they promised to return if their children were ever threatened. As if responding to the conversation, alerts began sounding throughout the facility. The artificial voice became more urgent. Alert. Hostile alien forces detected in Earth's atmosphere. Threat assessment, moderate to high. Beginning activation of planetary defense protocols. Back on the surface, the diplomatic talks were not going well. The aliens had given Earth's leaders 3 days to consider their offer. But as the hours passed, their patience was wearing thin. Ships began appearing over military bases around the world. Without warning, several satellites suddenly went dark. The aliens were demonstrating their power. This is a friendly reminder of our capabilities, Vexathai told the emergency session of world leaders. We hope you will make the wise choice. But the demonstration backfired. Instead of frightening humans into submission, it made them angry. President Santos stood up during the video conference with alien representatives. If you think threatening us will make us cooperate, you don't understand humans very well, she said firmly. Vexathai's skin shifted to a darker color, a sign of irritation among his species. Perhaps you need a more convincing demonstration. Without warning, a small, uninhabited island in the Pacific simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, vaporized by some kind of energy beam from orbit. But as the aliens celebrated their show of force, they failed to notice the massive energy spike that erupted from the ocean floor where the island had been. Deep beneath the water, Guardian Station Pacific 7 registered the attack and responded. Hostile action confirmed, the artificial voice told Sarah and Marcus. Activating emergency protocols, sending recall signal to the fleet. What fleet? Sarah asked. The Eternal Fleet, your people who never stopped exploring the galaxy. They will return to defend their ancestral sanctuary. Across the galaxy, in ships traveling between distant stars, humans who had never seen Earth received an urgent message. It was transmitted on frequencies that could cross space faster than light, using technology that the aliens attacking Earth didn't even know existed. The message was simple. Earth is under attack. Come home. As the first day of the alien ultimatum ended, neither side realized how much the game had changed. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would soon surrender. The humans thought they were facing their first contact with alien life. But deep beneath the oceans, ancient systems were preparing for war. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the children of Earth, who had never forgotten their origins, began turning their ships toward home. The real first contact was about to begin. Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display inside Guardian Station Pacific 7. The information flowing across the screen was rewriting everything she thought she knew about human history. You're telling me that humans originally came from the stars? She asked the artificial intelligence that controlled the facility. Correct, Dr. Chen. The Terran Dominion was a vast civilization that spanned thousands of worlds. Your ancestors were explorers, scientists, and warriors who traveled. The galaxy for millennia before Earth was chosen as a sanctuary world. Marcus was studying another display that showed a star map with thousands of glowing dots. All of these were human worlds? Were and are, the AI corrected. When the Dominion fought the Devourers 12,000 years ago, they ceded sanctuary, worlds like Earth with carefully selected populations. These populations were given genetic locks that would suppress their advanced capabilities until the time came when they were needed again. Sarah felt a strange tingling in her hands as she touched the control panels. Somehow, she understood how to operate technology that should have been completely alien to her. The genetic locks, they're breaking now, aren't they? Yes. The presence of hostile aliens in Earth's atmosphere has triggered the awakening protocols. Every human on Earth with Dominion genetic markers is beginning to remember what they truly are. Around the world, strange things were beginning to happen. Lieutenant Colonel James Rodriguez was leading a squadron of F-35 fighters on patrol when he suddenly understood exactly how to modify his plane's systems to be twice as effective. Dr. Lisa Park, a nuclear physicist in Tokyo, found herself sketching designs for power systems that shouldn't be possible with current technology. Sergeant Major David Kim discovered he could react to threats almost before they happened. At first, people thought it was stress from the alien crisis, but as the hours passed, the changes became impossible to ignore. Commander Vexthai was beginning to realize that something was wrong. His ship's sensors were detecting energy patterns from Earth that didn't match any known technology. The readings were similar to legends in the Empire's oldest databases, stories about an ancient human civilization that had vanished long ago. "Sir," reported his science officer, "we're detecting massive power sources activating across the planet. They're hidden beneath the surface, but the energy signatures are enormous." Vexthai's mandibles clicked nervously. "Are the humans more advanced than we thought?" "That's impossible, sir. We've been monitoring their development for days. They're definitely primitive." But even as they spoke, reports were coming in from Kitharan ships around the globe. Human military forces were suddenly performing at levels that defied explanation. Fighter pilots were executing maneuvers that should have been impossible. Ground forces were demonstrating reaction times and coordination that seemed almost supernatural. President Santos stood in a briefing room deep beneath the White House, listening to reports that sounded like science fiction. "Madam President," said General Harrison, "our pilots are reporting that they suddenly understand how to modify their aircraft systems. Our soldiers are moving and fighting like they've been training for decades. And our scientists are developing new technologies in hours that should take years." "How is that possible?" Dr. Patterson, who had been studying the reports all night, looked up from his tablet. "There's only one explanation that makes sense, though it sounds crazy. It's like our people are remembering things they never learned." Before President Santos could respond, every screen in the room activated simultaneously. The face that appeared was clearly human, but there was something ageless about the woman's eyes. "People of Earth," the woman said, "my name is Admiral Kira Voss of the Terran Dominion Eternal Fleet. I am speaking to you from the starship Endeavor, currently 3 days out from your system." Sarah and Marcus, still in the deep-sea facility, watched the same transmission on their screens. 12,000 years ago, your ancestors left Earth as part of a great exodus to the stars. When the galaxy became dangerous, Earth was chosen as a sanctuary where selected populations could grow and develop in safety. You are the children of explorers, scientists, and warriors who conquered the darkness between stars. Admiral Voss continued, "The genetic locks that have suppressed your true capabilities are now breaking. You will find that you can do things that seem impossible. Trust these new abilities. They are your birthright." Across the planet, humans began to understand. The strange new thoughts and capabilities they were experiencing weren't malfunctions or stress reactions. They were remembering who they really were. Commander Vexthai watched the transmission with growing horror. The Empire's databases contained fragmentary records of the first wanderers, an ancient human civilization that had disappeared from known space eons ago. Legend said they had technology that could reshape reality itself. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a direct transmission from the approaching fleet. Put it through." Admiral Voss's face appeared on the Kitharan bridge. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried the weight of centuries. "Commander Vexthai of the Kitharan Empire. You have threatened our ancestral home and our people. You have one opportunity to withdraw your forces and leave this system peacefully." Vexthai straightened to his full height. "Admiral, you are outnumbered. Our fleet consists of over 200 ships with weapons that can destroy planets." Admiral Voss smiled, and Vexthai felt a chill run down his spine. "Commander, In the 12,000 years since we left Earth, we have fought creatures that devour stars, conquered races that exist in dimensions you cannot imagine, and developed technology that transcends your understanding of physics. Your weapons can destroy planets. Ours can unmake solar systems. She paused, letting that sink in. But we are not here for conquest. We are here to protect our children. Withdraw now, and the Eternal Fleet will allow you to leave in peace. HFY looked at his tactical displays. His ships were powerful, but something about the approaching human fleet made his sensors behave strangely. The enemy ships seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. He opened a channel to the Imperial High Command. Your Majesty, I request permission to withdraw our forces. Empress Zaraketh's image appeared on the screen, her ancient face showing anger. Withdraw? From a handful of primitive humans? Absolutely not. If these legends are true, then their technology is exactly what the Empire needs. Capture or destroy their fleet. Your Majesty, I strongly advise against... The decision is made. Commander, all ships are to engage the approaching human fleet. That is an order. HFY closed the channel and looked at his crew. They were all staring at him with fear in their eyes. Like him, they had grown up hearing the old stories about the first wanderers. On Earth, the awakening accelerated. Humans everywhere found themselves able to interface with technology that had been hidden for millennia. Military bases discovered that their weapons systems could be upgraded using principles that their operators somehow just knew. Scientists began building devices that should have been impossible. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Guardian Station Pacific 7, her hands moving across control panels that felt as familiar as her own keyboard. Around her, the facility hummed with power as defensive systems that had slept for 12,000 years came fully online. The station is at full operational capacity, the AI reported. All Guardian stations worldwide are now active. Planetary defense grid is online. How? Many Guardian stations are there? Marcus asked. 47 major installations, with supporting infrastructure on every continent and under every ocean. Earth has never been undefended, Dr. Webb. Your people just forgot that they had Guardians. Sarah watched as status displays showed the positions of the approaching Eternal Fleet. Each ship was larger than anything the Kitharans had brought to Earth. But more importantly, they were moving faster than should be possible. Admiral Voss, Sarah said into the communication system, this is Dr. Sarah Chen at Guardian Station Pacific 7. What can we do to help? The Admiral's voice crackled through the speakers. Dr. Chen, your awakening has been faster than most. The Guardian stations will coordinate with the Eternal Fleet to protect Earth. But remember, we are not here to conquer. We are here to come home. As the third day of the alien ultimatum dawned, the Kitharan Empire prepared for what they thought would be an easy victory. They had no idea they were about to face humanity's true strength, a strength that had been waiting 12,000 years to be remembered. The real war was about to begin. The Kitharan attack fleet moved into Earth's orbital space like a metal storm. 200 warships, each the size of a city, took positions around the planet. Their weapons powered up with energy that could crack continents. Commander HFY stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display with growing unease. His orders were clear: destroy the approaching human fleet and capture Earth's new technologies. But every instinct he had developed in 3 decades of warfare was screaming that this was a mistake. Sir, the human fleet is entering sensor range, reported his tactical officer. What appeared on the main screen made the entire bridge fall silent. The human ships were impossible. They seemed to be made of living metal that flowed and shifted like liquid mercury. Some were the size of moons. Others were long and elegant like spears thrown by gods. They moved through space in ways that violated known physics, appearing and disappearing as if they could step outside reality itself. How many ships? HFY asked, though his voice came out as barely a whisper. Unknown, sir. They keep phasing in and out of our sensors. We're detecting anywhere from 50 to 500 vessels. Admiral Kira Voss stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, a ship that had been her home for 3,000 years. Around her, displays showed the positions of the Kithaeron fleet. To most species, it would have been an intimidating sight. To someone who had fought star devourers and reality benders, it was almost quaint. "Admiral," said her tactical officer, a woman whose genetic modifications allowed her to process battle data at superhuman speeds. "The Kithaerons are powering their weapons. Should we raise shields?" Kira almost smiled. "No need, Captain Torres. Their weapons can't touch us while we're phase-shifted, but let's give them a demonstration of what they're really facing." She opened a communication channel to the Kithaeron fleet. "Commander Vexthai, this is your final warning. Withdraw from Earth space immediately." Vexthai's response was immediate. "Admiral, I have my orders. All ships, engage the human fleet." The Kithaeron attack began with a barrage that lit up space like a newborn star. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and antimatter beams lanced out toward the human ships with enough force to shatter planets. Every shot passed harmlessly through the Eternal Fleet vessels as if they weren't there. "Sir," the Kithaeron tactical officer stammered, "our weapons aren't connecting. It's like they're not fully in our dimension." "Impossible," Vexthai growled. "Nothing can exist partially outside normal space-time." Admiral Voss sighed. Even after 12,000 years, younger species still thought they understood the limits of physics. "Endeavor to all ships," she broadcast, "demonstrate Level 1 tactical capabilities." The human fleet suddenly became fully solid, but instead of sitting, they're waiting to be shot, they moved. The ships didn't accelerate. They simply existed in new positions, having somehow skipped across space instantaneously, and then they began to return fire. The weapons that emerged from the human ships were unlike anything in the Kithaeron arsenal. Beams of coherent gravity tore through space, ripping apart enemy vessels at the molecular level. Energy fields that existed in 11 dimensions wrapped around Kithaeron ships and crushed them like aluminum cans. Some weapons simply reached across space and turned enemy power cores into flowers. In the first 30 seconds of combat, 40 Kithaeron ships were destroyed or disabled. "Retreat!" Vexthai ordered frantically. "All ships, full retreat!" But as his fleet tried to turn away, they discovered that space itself had become thick and sticky around them. The humans had somehow changed the local physics to trap them. On Earth, the awakened humans watched the battle through Guardian Station sensors. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the Pacific Facilities Command Center, coordinating planetary defenses with people she had never met but somehow felt connected to. "Guardian Station Atlantic 3 reports full activation," came a voice with a British accent. "All European defense grids are online." "Guardian Station Arctic 1 confirms readiness," added someone from the frozen north. "Polar installations are operational." Sarah realized she was part of a global network that had been waiting for this moment for 12,000 years. Every major city, every strategic location, every critical resource on Earth was protected by technology that made the alien invaders look like children with toys. But the real surprise came when ordinary humans began demonstrating their awakened abilities. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez found himself flying his F-35 through impossible maneuvers, dodging alien fire, while somehow knowing exactly where each shot would be before it was fired. His weapon systems, upgraded with technology that seemed to download itself into his brain, tore through alien fighter craft like paper. On the ground, Sergeant Major Kim led his unit against alien ground forces with tactics that felt ancient and instinctive. His soldiers moved like a single organism, anticipating each other's actions and responding to threats with inhuman coordination. Dr. Park, working in her laboratory in Tokyo, found herself building a device that could neutralize alien energy shields. She didn't understand how she knew what to build. The knowledge just flowed through her fingers as if someone else was guiding her hands. All across Earth, 6 billion humans were discovering that they were far more than they had ever imagined. In space, the battle was becoming a rout. Admiral Voss had initially held back, hoping the Kitharans would see reason and withdraw, but their stubbornness was forcing her to use more advanced weapons. "Admiral," Captain Torres reported, "I'm reading massive energy buildups from the enemy flagship. They're preparing to fire their planet-killer weapon." Kira nodded grimly. She had hoped to avoid this, but some species only learned through overwhelming demonstration. "Very well. Endeavor, activate the void array." Around the massive human flagship, space itself began to fold. Reality twisted as the ship reached across 11 dimensions and gently touched the Kitharan flagship's main weapon. The planet-killer cannon didn't explode. It didn't malfunction. It simply ceased to exist, along with the entire forward section of the Kitharan ship. Commander Vextai stared at his displays in shock. Part of his ship was gone, not destroyed, not damaged, but gone as if it had never existed. The edges of the missing section were perfectly smooth, showing cross-sections of bulkheads and machinery that ended in nothingness. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving another transmission from the human admiral." Admiral Voss appeared on the screen again. Her expression was sad rather than triumphant. "Commander, you have seen what we can do with our most basic weapons. We have others that can unweave the quantum foam that holds matter together. We have devices that can make your entire fleet forget how to exist. We have weapons that kill not just bodies, but the very concept of your species." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "But we don't want to use them. We came here to protect our children, not to wage war against the galaxy. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated with honor." Vextai looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with a mixture of fear and hope. They had signed up to fight primitive aliens, not gods. "Admiral Voss," he said quietly, "on behalf of the Kitharan expedition fleet, I surrender." The battle was over. But as news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy, other species began to realize that the balance of power had just shifted dramatically. The humans had returned to the galactic stage, and they were nothing like what anyone had expected. On Earth, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Guardian Station Pacific 7, looking up at the stars through the facility's transparent dome. Somewhere up there, the Eternal Fleet was processing Kitharan prisoners and beginning the long work of establishing Earth's place in the galactic community. She felt Marcus come up beside her. "So, what happens now?" he asked. Sarah smiled, feeling possibilities flowing through her mind like a river of light. "Now we remember who we really are, and we help our cousins among the stars remember too." The age of hiding was over. Humanity had come home. 3 months after the surrender of the Kitharan fleet, the galaxy was a very different place. Commander Vextai sat in comfortable quarters aboard the human ship Endeavor, writing his final report to the Kitharan High Command. As a prisoner of war, he had expected harsh treatment or even execution. Instead, he had been given access to libraries, comfortable rooms, and respectful treatment that put his own empire's prisoner protocols to shame. "The humans are not what we thought," he wrote carefully. "Their technology is so advanced that calling it superior to ours is like comparing a star to a candle. But more importantly, their intentions are completely different from what we assumed." Admiral Kira Voss had visited him personally several times, explaining what the Eternal Fleet was really doing in the galaxy. The humans weren't conquerors. They were protectors, guardians who had spent 12,000 years fighting threats that would have destroyed every younger species in the galaxy. "They call them the Devourers," Vextai continued in his report. "Creatures from outside normal, reality that consume not just matter and energy, but concepts themselves. The humans have been holding them back, fighting a war that the rest of us never even knew was happening. Through his quarter's viewport, he could see the construction happening around Earth. Massive space stations were being built using human technology that seemed to grow rather than being assembled. These weren't military bases. They were universities, research centers, and diplomatic facilities where younger species could learn from humanity's accumulated knowledge. On Earth's surface, the integration of ancient and modern human society was proceeding smoothly. Dr. Sarah Chen had been appointed as the liaison between Earth's newly awakened population and the Eternal Fleet. Her first meeting with Admiral Voss had been emotional for both women. When we left Earth 12,000 years ago, Voss had explained, we always planned to return. Every generation of the Eternal Fleet has carried memories of the blue world where humanity began. You are our children, but you are also our greatest success. Sarah walked through the halls of Guardian Station Pacific 7, which had become the unofficial capital of Earth's new government. The facility was now fully active, with humans from around the world working alongside automated systems that seemed almost alive. "Dr. Chen," called Marcus as he hurried to catch up with her. "The Kitharan delegation is here for the treaty signing." Sarah nodded. The treaty they were about to sign would reshape the political structure of this entire region of the galaxy. The Kitharan Empire was dissolving, not through conquest, but through voluntary dissolution. When their member species learned that humanity offered protection without domination, most had chosen to leave the Empire and seek independent relationships with the Eternal Fleet. The treaty ceremony took place in the station's Great Hall, a vast chamber that existed partially in normal space and partially in higher dimensions. Representatives from dozens of species attended, including former members of the Kitharan Empire, and delegations from other galactic powers who wanted to understand what humanity's return meant for them. Empress Zaraketh arrived in person, her ancient form supported by mechanical aids. She had ruled the Kitharan Empire for 3,000 years, but she looked fragile next to Admiral Voss, who was older still but showed no signs of aging. "Your Majesty," Admiral Voss said formally as they met, "the Eternal Fleet bears no grudge against your people. The Empire's expansion into former human space was understandable. You believed those worlds were empty." Zaraketh bowed her head. "We were wrong about many things, Admiral. We thought strength came from controlling others. You have shown us that true strength comes from protecting others." The treaty that was signed that day was unlike any document in galactic history. Instead of dividing territory or establishing tribute, it created a network of mutual protection and shared knowledge. The Eternal Fleet would provide protection from external threats and access to advanced technology. In return, younger species would contribute their unique perspectives and discoveries to the collective advancement of all sapient life. But the real changes were happening among individual humans on Earth. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez had been promoted to general and was now heading Earth's new aerospace defense force. His fighters used technology that bent space around them, allowing them to move faster than light while remaining in normal space. But more than that, he and his pilots found themselves connected to each other in ways that made traditional communication unnecessary. Dr. Park had established a research center in Tokyo where human and alien scientists worked together on projects that seemed like magic. Energy sources that drew power from the quantum foam of space itself. Materials that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Computers that thought with quantum consciousness. Sergeant Major Kim was training the first generation of Earth's new peacekeeping forces. These weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were protectors who could end conflicts without violence, using abilities that most humans were still learning to understand. But perhaps the most important change was in how humanity saw itself. President Santos stood before the United Nations General Assembly, addressing not just Earth's leaders, but representatives from across the galaxy. "For 12,000 years, we thought we were alone," she said. "We built our civilizations believing that we were the only intelligence in the universe. We were wrong, but in a way more wonderful than we ever imagined." She gestured to Admiral Voss, who stood nearby. We were never alone. Our cousins among the stars have been protecting us, fighting battles we never knew were being fought, keeping horrors at bay that we never knew existed. They did this not for conquest or control, but out of love for the world where humanity began. The applause that followed came from beings with dozens of different kinds of hands, creating a sound unlike anything heard before on Earth. 6 months later, Commander Vexatai was released from captivity and offered a choice: return to what remained of the Catharan Empire or join the Eternal Fleet as a liaison between humanity and his people. He chose to stay. "Admiral," he said to Kira Voss as they stood on the observation deck of the Endeavour, watching Earth turn slowly below them. "I have a question that has troubled me since the battle." "Ask. Your ships, your weapons, they seemed almost alive. How is that possible?" Voss smiled. "After 12,000 years of pushing the boundaries of what's possible, we discovered that the line between technology and life isn't as clear as most species believe. Our ships are alive, in a sense. They're partners rather than tools." She touched the wall beside them, and Vextai could have sworn he felt it respond. "The greatest strength isn't in the weapons or the ships, Commander. It's in the connections. Between people, between species, between all forms of consciousness in the galaxy." A year after first contact, Earth had become the center of a new kind of galactic civilization. Not an empire built on conquest, but a community built on mutual protection and shared growth. Children who had been born after the awakening displayed abilities that amazed their parents. They could interface with technology instinctively, communicate across vast distances without instruments, and somehow sense the connections between all living things. Dr. Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's first galactic ambassador, often stood in the Pacific Facility's observation dome, watching ships from dozens of worlds come and go. Some brought new species seeking protection and knowledge. Others carried humans heading out to the stars to rejoin their cousins in the Eternal Fleet. "Marcus," she said one evening as they watched a particularly beautiful ship depart for the Andromeda Galaxy, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if the Kitharans had never come?" Marcus considered the question. "We would have figured it out eventually. The awakening was always going to happen. Maybe it would have taken longer, but humanity always finds a way to reach for the stars." Sarah nodded. He was right. The Catharan threat had accelerated the process. But humanity's true nature would have emerged eventually. It was who they were: explorers, protectors, dreamers who refused to accept limits. Across the galaxy, other species were learning this truth about humanity. The Eternal Fleet didn't conquer worlds, they offered partnership. They didn't demand tribute, they shared knowledge freely. They didn't rule through fear, they inspired through example. And gradually, the galaxy was becoming a safer, more wonderful place. In the depths of space, beyond the edge of known reality, ancient threats still stirred. The devourers and worse things waited in the darkness between dimensions. But now, they faced not just the Eternal Fleet, but a growing alliance of species united in their refusal to bow to fear. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the Endeavour as it prepared for another deep space mission. Her ship's living consciousness hummed with anticipation, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in the void. "Take us out," she ordered, and felt the ship respond like a faithful companion. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, blue and green and beautiful in the starlight. The sanctuary world had fulfilled its purpose, raising a new generation of humanity that would help carry the light of consciousness into the darkest corners of existence.